quality and manufacturing look at the same data but see it differently. Here is what quality is looking at. This data compared to these specifications. Are we within specs? Will this do harm? Yeah. This is what manufacturing is looking at. It is the exact same data, yeah, but where this is on a scale from 3 to 9, yeah, our accept reject specs are 3 to 9. Here, we are controlling between 7.99750 and 8.01210. Oh my God, it's out of control, right? Oh, we lost one. Oh, lost one. Oh, lost one, yeah? But if manufacturing weren't operating at this level of scrutiny, quality would have no chance of complying with the specifications at this level. And I believe that unlike other industries, this is a very useful split that has evolved in ours. This may also explain why manufacturing tries not to show quality a control chart. Because what is quality going to do as soon as they see a big red dot? I have known quality representatives who have gotten very excited about that. And then we have discussion about practical significance versus statistical significance. Perhaps neither quality nor manufacturing want to show this to the regulators. Why? Because it's out of statistical control. If it's out of statistical control, how do you know where the next point's going to land? Well, that was actually one of Deming's sticks. He used to beat GM up with that all the time. And I have heard Grace McNally use that argument also. She was one of the co-authors of the process validation guidance, the 2011 process validation guidance. But imagine a world without performance, without this performance view. Yeah? And this might also be why why everybody's trying to protect manufacturing so they can just keep doing their job, is because without this performance view, this is all we've got. And one of the unfortunate habits in our industry is that if we see a picture like this, and this is something that I actually was able to address with Dr. Janet Woodcock at one of the PDA conferences. We were on a speakers panel, and it led to quite an interesting discussion. In our industry, what do you do with those specs? Oh, well, that's interesting. What have we just done? Yeah, we have made it infinitely harder for manufacturing to make anything. This is a market constriction. This is non-value added to the consumer. All we've done is hurt ourselves by improving our process. And so, one of the points that came out of this discussion with Dr. Woodcock and the other panel members is that FDA is not accepting plus or minus 3 standard deviations as the default for setting our specifications. And I've heard many people wrestling with that, which is good. Because if you want to know what the root cause of drug shortages is, this could be one of them. Any questions or thoughts on that before I move on?
Do the regulations require us to tighten our specs based on actuality?
Where?
In the manufacturing process.
Can you quote the reg for me?
Somewhere it says about doing annual reviews and having a suitable specification.
This has no impact to patient risk. It is a suitable specification.
Yep.
It would be a mistake to confuse that with a control limit, which is what manufacturing would use to monitor the performance of its process. This is a boundary of therapeutic or toxicological relevance which leads to direct impact to the patient? Very good question. There's also an interesting ICH document. I think it's ICH Q6, maybe section 2B. I'd have to go back, but it's ICH Q6, which talks about the ability to both open and shrink specs. Because when we get to lot release, or when we get through stage 2 process validation and on to lot release, we're trying to set specs on a woefully small data set in which everybody is doing everything they possibly can to make it all be perfect. Yeah? And so over time, those processes have a tendency to float, and the specs could be widened as you get better information. All right, so is process capability a tool of compliance or performance? Is everyone familiar with process capability as I intended? I am going to discuss process capability not as an indices, not as a CPK or PPK or CPM or CPLK, or there's all these different indices. And they all have their use, like any tool. It's appropriate to the problem you're trying to solve. For us, in the pharmaceutical industry, I think the most basic comparison we should be using for annual review is what is the variability in our process, right? The OOT, the trend range. Here I have it marked as plus or minus 3 standard deviations, which represents 99.73% of the population. The variability in our process compared to the OOS range, the specification range, which is the variability allowed. Yeah? So our critical quality attribute capability is the OOS range divided by the OOT range, which happens to be similar to the C sub P capability index, which has this formula, the upper specification limit minus the lower specification limit, yeah, the OOS range divided by plus or minus 3 standard deviations. So let's just think about it as the OOS to OOT ratio. Oh, nobody laughed. All right. So process capability, CQA capability is our OOS to OOT. And where the OOS range protects the patient, the OOT range protects the company. Where the OOS range protects the patient, right? That's our 3 to 9 blue specification limits that have therapeutic or toxicological implications. The OOT range protects the company. That's the plus or minus 3 standard deviations where we shrunk the specifications. And business needs space between these two concepts to operate. Only the OOS should be reportable, or else the OOT will become the new OOS and we will have that market constriction, yeah? And process capability should be a self-audit by manufacturing reportable to senior management for continual improvement. Because manufacturing is in the best position to understand what is happening, what they did on the manufacturing floor that resulted in the variability that they're finding in the process. Personally, I like process monitoring as either a monthly or a quarterly activity where the material review board gets together, and for those critical quality attributes that have been ranked as, or for those quality attributes that have been ranked as critical and worthy of monitoring, they get together and they take a look at the trend charts. Because if you wait for a year for your regulatory organization to do that review, well, they don't have the context as to what has been happening real time on the floor. They'll have a very hard time discerning what is of statistical significance as opposed to what is of practical significance, yeah? And a whole host of things. The other thing that's important in this point is that by making it a self-audit, there are some protections to our organization where FDA under FDASIA 705 and 706 can't just come in and say, all right, give me all your process capabilities. It would be like any other self-audit where you are auditing your quality systems. Yeah? If the first thing you had to do was turn over your books that, these are the problems, all the problems we found, it might create some conflicts of interest.